So I'm here with Stefan. Maybe Stefan, if you want to say a couple of words about you.
I'm Stefan, K15t. Kleinekenscheidt is actually my last name, and that's my company, and I'm the co-founder and the CEO.
Okay.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. As you can see, it's still being built up for the team 23, so if it's a little bit background noise, we'll have to do with that.
Yeah.
But what was actually K15t like in 2013 when we got started?
So we started a little bit earlier. Depending on how you count, in 2009 we started like part-time. I and my co-founder were still like working, or my co-founder was doing his thesis. And in 2013 we already like almost broke even. We could see that the app business would work out, but at the time we were also like consultants. We were also solution partners, so that was making the money at the time. Okay. And in 2014 we actually broke even. So that was the situation back then.
Sounds like it was a pretty exciting time there.
Yeah.
So how many people was it then, roughly?
Probably like 12. 12?
Wow, yeah, it's already like, quite a size.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of consulting work for different companies to pay for the bills. And we only had we were just about to start to like separate the app teams and the consulting team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you actually remember how we met? I mean, I'm honest, I didn't remember, but I certainly knew it was definitely already in San Diego where you made quite an impression on me, but...
These are really difficult questions.
Well, yeah, we're not known for being easy.
Yeah. I really don't know either. I know you left a big impression on me in 2019, but we knew each other a long time before that. That I know for sure. In 2019, we were like in this, meeting room where there were no windows, but a fish tank instead of a window with sharks behind it. And you were like fiercely discussing with Atlassians and like making your point and so on. And that I can remember really, really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I mean, obviously throughout the journey, I think we all learned a lot about being an entrepreneur, running a company, going from very small to some medium size. What was that for you, and what are maybe some of the biggest learnings or things?
Biggest learnings? Or like quotes, like one is probably trial and error. I think we really made I made every single mistake I could make along the way. That's one thing. And then on the other hand, it's in German, it's einfach mal machen, könnte gut werden. And it's just like about doing things and just trying it out, yeah. That's like probably my biggest learning.
Okay. How did you feel about the journey of running your company?
I'm becoming more and more proud. I'm very self-critical usually, and my colleagues know. It's like the one poking everyone, hey, we can do better than this and so on. But I'm actually also really tough on me. And only over the last couple years, actually, like during the pandemic, I kind of found out that we actually had achieved quite a bit. And that we can be really proud of that.
That's what I really like about the ecosystem. It's I think a lot of, especially the people who started in the same area where we started, it's a lot of like-minded, similar stories, how they got into the business. Yeah. And that's really cool because it's more like people you would meet for beer rather than just partners or other things. Yeah,
definitely.
So what do you find, or what do you find so unique about being a marketplace partner in the ecosystem?
Well, I mean, I think it's two things. Like one what you said, but like obviously it's like the business, right? Yeah. It's a business side of things. It's a great opportunity. The marketplace is like really a place where you can build a business on, and I'm really grateful that Scott and Mike created this ecosystem and all Atlassians, right? And the other thing is that like all the people in the ecosystem are mostly friendly, a few exceptions, but by far almost everyone is like really friendly. It's great to hang out with beers or other drinks, and that's a great thing about the marketplace, I think. I didn't have alcohol yesterday. I'm really proud of myself.
I mean, you already cut to it a little bit, but when was the point where you really realized, oh, this is going to be a business and this might actually be sustainable or part of my future, what I'm going to do?
I mean, must have been like in 2009 when I quitted my job at my previous company. When I was working at Bosch, and in Stuttgart, when you work for Bosch, That's a thing. You never quit there usually. But I really,
brave decision.
I really knew I had to do it to get out of there and like do my own thing. And then obviously in 2014 when we broke even with the apps, that was when I like felt confident and really knew that this could become bigger, I guess.
I mean, if you look at K15t and the products you have today, there's obviously a lot of weight behind Confluence. Yeah. When a lot of other marketplace vendors, they start with Jira and are mostly focused on Jira or very heavyweight or somewhat distributed. You're very specialized on Confluence. Was that a conscious decision, or was it where the ideas were flowing? How did you come to that?
Yeah, it was like kind of natural because like my inner drive is like to share information. I really like sharing information with other people, and I think it's also like part of our like belief as a company that if you share your information and your knowledge, you can contribute to make the world a better place. And that's what we truly believe, and that's why we build apps for Confluence, because teams can manage all their content in Confluence really, really well. To some part also in Jira. But with our apps, you can kind of like then share this information with your teams, with your customers, with your users, so that they can understand your product or what you do for them better. That's the idea behind K15t. And then, Backbone is the only Jira app we have. That's also kind of along these lines, because it also helps like teams to work better together across companies. Yeah,
that's interesting. And I mean, we use your apps as well. So I know what you're talking about. And I actually also know how hard it is to, I mean, it's not that I don't want to share information, but if there's a lot of friction, then it makes it so much harder to be proactive about things. And I think that's where your apps really help.
It should go like that. Like if you work together in Confluence, the collaboration Confluence usually works quite well. I think we see customers struggling with that as well. But then like publishing it should be really, really easy. And if you have to copy paste it into a CMS or something like that, that's not what you want to have, right? Yeah.
By far not. In Resolution, when we started off, actually in our past history, we did a lot of professional services and consulting. But when we started on the marketplace, for us, it was a relatively conscious decision to not do that and just focus to being vendor. Quite frankly, because I was sick of professional services, day rates and all of that.
And you had probably the funding to do that because of being a consulting company before, I guess.
And that's where the next question leads to. You obviously started with both consulting and marketplace, as you said, like most marketplace vendors actually have. But you sold off the consulting division recently. Why? I mean, what was your thoughts behind it?
Peace of mind. Same as how you started. I didn't know it back then, and we were young and needed the money. So we did that just to fund the company really at the beginning. And then it took us...
That might be a quote that follows you for a long time. You were young and needed the money.
Yeah, so exactly.
There might be some memes coming around with that.
Yeah, definitely. We broke even in 2014, as I said, with the apps. So we had great customers. We had great people on the team who were consultants, who liked being consultants. So we didn't tore it down right away. And it took us 6-7 more years to finally came to the point where we said, look, it's not what we can do really, really, really well. And that's why we teamed up and sold the solution partner business to Scandio. And it's really peace of mind for myself. It's like being able to focus what I always wanted to do is really great.
Yeah, and I mean, doing products I always find absolutely amazing because it scales so much better and it's in some ways a lot tougher because you need to have the right ideas and execute well at the right time. Also, the great app at the wrong time doesn't really help either. But once you figure that out, or in a lucky position to have that, then it's a much more amazing business than the consulting business. If you could start over again, what would you do again? What would you maybe not do again?
You mean like advice for people who start now, or I don't know?
Take like you like.
All in all, it turned out quite well. So like doing all those turns and doing the stuff that didn't work out, it all helped us learn. So I'm kind of fine with that. What not to do? Well, generally, like I would make my mistakes earlier and faster, and learn from that earlier. But all in all, I'm quite fine how it worked out.
Do you feel like you've done a lot of mistakes twice, or is it just?
Yeah, that's like the saying, like do a mistake once, okay. Do a mistake twice, welcome to the real world. Do a mistake 100 times, welcome to software development, right?
I didn't know that, to be honest.
Yeah, we probably made mistakes a couple times, but I think what we could have done better is like act earlier on the mistakes. I'm kind of like pretty like try to find out and make things work, even if it's clear that it doesn't work out with people, for example.
Yeah.
But then I think it's also for the culture. It's important in the company. We're not like giving up easily on people and try out different things for them. But sometimes I should have known earlier. But then we just tried out, and I think it was also good for us in the end to learn that.
Yeah, I think, but I can totally relate to that because I think I would say the same about myself.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to find a balance between giving someone a real fair chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the people where I even had very tough conversations in the meantime, I was like already putting the notice on the table, and if you don't stop this, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
They turned out great in the end. Finding that balance between giving them a real fair chance, but also calling it quits at some point to realize it's not going to work out, because that's at least my learning of it is if you don't do that, then you're not giving them any chance anymore. You see everything in a bad light. You don't treat them as fairly anymore, and it's just going downhill from there. So finding exactly that cutoff point, I also find very hard.
It's probably not. There's no one right point. You always have to make a call some point. I think for us, it also has worked out actually. Like we had people who were like, oh gosh, this person's just not doing what they're supposed to do while we've hired them, and then we found something else what they could do really, really well.
Yeah,
and really amazing stories at our company. And at the same time, we also had people like it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So,
But that example is, I think, a brilliant one because I find too often people are ultimately categorized in good or bad.
Yeah.
But I think we all have to realize they're coming here to do a job. Yeah. They might be great people, but they might be just wrong for the job. And if we don't have any other then that's where we separate. But sometimes giving them something that challenges them, where they're enthusiastic and passionate about and do a great job is something where you can build amazing teams and be really incredible about.
Yeah. And I actually found out, maybe to add that one thing, is that like when it didn't work out, it was actually that we didn't have the leadership for those people in their positions. Like usually like junior people who didn't have anyone they can look up to and learn from and so on. That was like always this dilemma where we had to make the cut at some point. And the other thing is like how to find out what people can do really, really well. We started introducing self-organized team in 2017. I'm not sure if we talked about that.
I heard about it.
And so we have like teams, and they organize themselves. They have to find out who's doing what. We also don't define roles. We call it area of responsibility, so that they know what kind of responsibilities they have to cover in the team and what kind of makes sense. But it's really happening that it's kind of like a fluid style that people can change their roles a little bit. And it works pretty well. And the teams do it a little bit differently. Each team is like, you always have to know like who's taking over this part and that part and so on. But all in all, it works quite well.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea? Or got to that point?
So I met a guy at like some networking dinner who introduced self-organized teams in an old company, like a 100-year-old company close to Stuttgart, who are building like saws, not chainsaws, but like the Bandsägen. I don't know what it's called in English. They had like, he was hired to introduce a new project management process, because they won a new project. The project was like twice the annual revenue, huge project, and they knew if that project got wrong, they would have had to shut down the company. And then he had like written this whole handbook and everything. He had done this in different companies before. And then the week before, he was invited to, or he went to another company who also did self-organized teams. He saw that and he said to his bosses, look, let's do it. Let's try to do it this way, and to introduce that. And huge success story there. They done it. They did it for like 10 years or so. That inspired me. I read books about it. Reinventing Organizations is a book by Frederic Laloux.
I haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
It's pretty inspiring to see like how this can work. And the basic idea is that what Frederic Laloux says is like that these new style of organizations, they not consider themselves as machines where the CEO is like pulling levers and pushing buttons and so on, but more of a living organism. And that's how you should think about it, where like you say like, okay, everyone is like trying to find out, we're trying to do this and that, and it's more like, fluid is probably the right word for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if you think back about all the events where we've been, all the crazy things, is there anything that sticks out? Any memories? What was the best Atlassian event and why?
I mean, many.
Yes.
Some parts I also don't want to talk about here on camera.
I wouldn't know
like,
what you're talking
like
about
stories with founders of other companies, also like the big one here. But I mean, I think the most important one for me was really like 2009 Atlas Camp in Half Moon Bay. I was still working for Bosch. Bosch has sent me over to hand over some stuff because I had already quit it.
Okay.
Sent me over here to California because we were working together with a department there. And then they would let me stay another week. And in that week there was Atlas Camp. And I went there and there was like Scott and Mike and all the dinosaurs. Like you weren't there at the time, but you're also a dinosaur almost, right? Yeah, that was kind of memorable. Like with like on the camp, we were sitting on a campfire and people were playing werewolf, and I don't know, it was more like a school excursion or something.
Yeah, that sounds like a very fond memory.
Yeah.
Was it actually easy to start in 2009 selling plugins? It must have been before the marketplace was really there. I mean, if I'm just from my side, we developed the SAML plugin because I was sick of having to log in all the time. Yeah. So we did it for ourselves. Then we looked at, there's a marketplace. Thought, okay, let's put another 3-4 weeks into the plugin that you can actually upload it there, put it there, and then people started to buy it a couple of weeks later. Yeah. So I would love to tell the story the other way around. I had the foresight, this is going to be amazing, and that's why we put it there. Actually, the more real story is we put it there, people started to buy it, and I realized I mean, to get it there, the thought was if we have the problem, other people might have it too, so let's upload it there. But to be truly honest, if that wouldn't have been so easy with Atlassian doing all the transactions, essentially people can download it, pay for it, etc. I'm pretty sure we would have never done it. This business as such wouldn't exist. But you started in a time where none of that convenience factor was there.
Yeah, I mean, the story of K15t and the Scroll apps is actually a lot older. So, and I also don't know if I told you, like I started using Jira in 2002. This was my first job after uni, 3 months in or so. And we needed a bug tracker. And I thought, well, we're obviously going to use Bugzilla. But my boss found out this tool on the internet called Jira and asked me to install it and run it for the team. Then I switched jobs, also introduced Jira there, also Confluence when it came out in 2004. And we put all our documentation in there for my team. And we were developing a internal software with an API to connect like systems, like a provisioning system, basically. At some point, like we had an external vendor who also should like connect to our API. And my boss said, just export it to PDF and email it to them. And the thing was there was no PDF exporter for Confluence in version 1 dot something, right? And then, that was like where the idea was born, really. And our MVP was a consultant who copy-pasted everything into a Word document. That was where the idea was born. And then it took another 4 or 5 years until we finally get this. Like I met my co-founder Tobias a little bit later, like 2 or 3 years later. We started developing it, like in the Christmas holiday, I can remember. Then we set it apart for a year. Next Christmas holiday, we continued and so on. And we finally released it in 2009 and thought, well, somehow this must work for Atlassian, should work for us as well, right? Yeah. It didn't really. We sold very few licenses at the beginning. It was complicated with the transaction handling and so on. And the reason to like quit the job at Bosch was actually not that we sold a lot of licenses, but we got like requests from 2 big German companies who wanted to have like customizations of the product, and that made me quit my job at Bosch. And then of course we went into consulting later on because the money it sounded like a lot of money what we got in those customization project, but it wasn't as much. And that's how we did that. And then like the marketplace came around, and then it really like it took off. That was really helpful for sure.
Yeah, I mean.
And then also the thing is like the scroll apps are not like, and especially the exporter is not this. It's not like mission critical, and we're kind of in a niche. But it's also interesting to be in a niche because then you can like really focus on something and you don't have as many competitors. It's not, that's also quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other story about like bumpy starts and so on is like when we released it beginning of 2009. This was when like the first like proper PDF export that was built into Confluence was released. Yeah. Just like at about the same time. And so we knew we had to do it somehow better, and obviously it worked out. And it's also the thing that Atlassian is not really investing a lot of money into PDF export, but because it's not the core use case for Confluence users, right?
No, but I mean that's what we obviously see a lot is that they solve some use cases on a very basic thing that it's good for a lot of people, but anyone who needs a little bit more, that's where ultimately our apps come in. I mean, Single Sign On is the same thing. There's actually not just basic, but decent stuff in data center nowadays. But the larger the institution gets, the more they actually need customizations, more IDPs, those kind of thing. And that's really where we find our customers. So how do you think the relationship with Atlassian has changed? I mean, they've grown from very little. I mean, when I started, it was still sort of doable to have a relationship with most of the important people that you were dealing with. Nowadays, that's with 10,000 people, that's much harder. How do you think that relationship has changed?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You have to navigate Atlassian and have to know how to do things. And you have like this official ways with like, now technical partner managers and stuff like that, and this works. I think it works quite well given the size of organization, and they're really committed to help. But then sometimes you have like, it's like really handy to have like those old connections. Not that I'm like calling Mike every second week or so, more not at all actually. But they're like some long-term Atlassians who still like who like you can talk to about like, like if you have a new product idea, you can like ask them, hey, look, this is our idea. What do you think? And then you get like at least like, oh, we're not planning this in the next 24 months. And then you kind of know, okay, it makes sense to invest a bit more time into it.
I mean, I feel exactly the same. I think you can, even if someone is new as a vendor, they can probably achieve a lot with what is around. But sometimes those connections that you build over some cocktails, beers or so, you can do without them, but they can give you a lot more substance or verification on is that something worth doing or helping you to accelerate things. If you wouldn't have a business today, would you start in the Atlassian ecosystem?
I think it's still a good place to be. I don't know of any like other good ecosystems where you can monetize your products as well as in the Atlassian ecosystem. I think it's just everything is a lot more professional now. Like, I mean, when we started, like one thing where we always stood out a bit was like design and of the UIs and of our marketing material and so on. Now everyone is like at this level, so it's really hard to kind of like differentiate.
What differentiated you before is now sort of the base.
That's the standard, exactly. So and also like, I mean, all the mistakes we made really, like with UIs, like we spent so much time sometimes building stuff that hardly any user would use eventually, you need to be more professional in like across the board, and we could try. And back then there was more time to trying out and making mistakes. I think that's probably a mistake. The difference now. But I mean, you can tell there's still like lots of people who start businesses now in the ecosystem, and works quite well.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. It's I think it's doable, but you need to be much better now. I mean, well, it's hard to say. I mean, it's easier to be better because you have a lot more tool sets and things. So stuff we had developed from scratch before, as an NPM module, and you're done with it. So to get to that base level is easier than it was in the past days. But at the time when we started, the marketplace was empty. You could get visibility to virtually any idea. I think now that's much harder. So just making the 23rd version of a plugin that's already successful isn't what's going to be successful. So you really need to have I always like to call it a problem to solve. So something that really solves the problem, that someone is willing to pay money for to get it solved, and is actually looking for a solution. And I think especially the last part is important, because there are lots of nice add-ons, even one or two of ours, which are in the category, once you talk to people and explain it to them, they are like, oh, that's a great idea, let me try that. But I would never be inspired to go looking for it. So if people are not actively looking for it, then it makes much harder to do the marketing. And so inspiring the ideas in someone's head, oh, I need this, is much harder than just being found when they're looking for a solution.
By the way, can I make a plug? We have like this information hub. It's called for app developers. It's available under k15t.com/abc. Maybe we can link it in the description, and we share some information like about what we've learned along the way.
You should plug it more often, because I did not know that.
It's very new.
I usually know those kind of resources.
It's very new. It's also part of like this whole idea of like sharing information and knowledge with others, and it's very new.
Yeah, that's also what I like about the ecosystem, because most marketplace vendors have some kind of things that they share, be it either by open sourcing things, libraries or that stuff, or doing learnings or those kind of sessions. So that's pretty cool, and that in an environment where you actually sometimes compete with each other, and finding that balance, I think most ecosystems don't get right, and I think that's something very special what Atlassian has built there, and the people around it.
Definitely. I actually have a meeting at 11.
That's all right, then let's finish here.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.